A lot of memories on Alligator. Yeah, yeah, that was neat. A lot of steps were made in a forward direction on that in a very short period of time. The whole budget on that film was something like 1.1 mil. This is 1980, I believe, 81. It started out with a 25-foot alligator that Ben Stansbury's shop in Beverly Hills made, because I think that the producer brought this first to Stansbury, and a group of sculptors were hired to sculpt a 25-foot, beautifully detailed, perfect alligator. Huge, bigger than full size. Then they made a very, very nicely done set of fiberglass molds from the clay original. Then they put those molds together and painted latex rubber inside and built up a thickness of latex all over the surface. And then they dressed in hoops of rattan, representing kind of like a rib cage, all over the main body of the thing. The legs they just left as latex, and they built them up nice and thick. But the whole body, from the fat part of the tail all the way up to the head, had these rattan hoops. And what this gave them was a very lightweight latex gator that you could put two guys in, and they could walk around and do alligator stuff. The guy in the rear could grab a stick and with his hands and control the tail while he's doing the back feet. And the guy in the front doing the front feet can work a jaw mechanism as if the gator is eating somebody. So that was all well and fine, but something happened along the way where the project was taken away from Stansbury and put in a warehouse for a long time. We inherited, at Apogee, we inherited the molds and the now rotting away rubber alligator, which wasn't of a photographic quality any longer. We had to make an actual alligator that could do all the things that that gator could have done, but had a perfect skin. So we started out with a urethane compound that John Erland had researched, that we could mix the three components together and put in a coloring agent and then spray it. So we sprayed up all these sections and stuck the mold together and did the bond lines and made this really heavy-duty urethane alligator. And it had a big, giant 4-inch suction hose for the tail, and it had this nice hinged steel mechanism for the jaws. The thing weighed hundreds of pounds. It was so beautifully overbuilt that when we got the two football player guys inside of it, they could barely get it off the ground, let alone walk, let alone race across the room and attack somebody. So shooting became somewhat problematic. We had to kind of shoot around the gator in a lot of instances. So we ended up making an articulate head separate from the main gator, and we made an articulate tail that we could put on a gimbal with a long pole so that we could do close-up shots of the tail slapping people around. But as far as a practical walking around kicking ass gator, it was kind of not there, and it was a real problem. Brandon kept getting mad at us because he wanted more convincing gator attacks and more action out of the animal. In fact, there are some scenes in the movie where we had to throw together a 1/3 scale set and put a 9-foot caiman into it. And unfortunately, it kind of gives itself away because the camera's up high. So you never want to look down at a model, because it just sort of, you have little signs all over the place that say model, tabletop model, looking down at this little toy model. So you kind of have to cut away from that really quickly. But all in all, we got the movie, in the can. And then they called me back in after all is said and done. We've got to set up the backstory of how the gator gets to be 25 feet long. He's, as a little tiny baby gator, he's thrown down the toilet and he falls into the storm drain, and he encounters some kind of toxic waste from the pharmaceutical company that causes him to mutate into this 25-foot monster. So we have to tell the story of him going down through the drain, So I built a cutaway sewer that we could put the little baby alligator through. And that was a lot of fun doing that as an insert afterwards. Although the little gator didn't want to swim in my model sewer pipe, so he had to have a little bit of monofilament tied onto him and pulled along. But they got the shot. It's another one of those cases where you're at the 11th hour and you got to get the shot. So what do? You think of something else. Plan A didn't work. Plan B didn't work, so Plan C, yeah, we got it. It's good enough. Walking away, moving on. I think there's a scene where it knocks over like a bus stop bench or something like that. But I did do the breakaway sidewalk where the articulate head is down underneath an elevated stage, and we have a kind of a simple grungy city scene in the background. It's a fairly close shot. But I built a number of styrofoam sections that were pre-broken and then painted and dressed back together again. Just barely held together with little toothpicks. And the gator head came up from below on the gimbal, boom, like that, and there was fuller's earth sprinkled everywhere. I remember when we did our test, there was probably too much fuller's earth in the shot, in all the cracks of the styrofoam. But we did a trial shot, and all the guys up in the green beds with their high-speed cameras were getting ready, and a lot of those old cameras, they were in the middle of opening them up and checking them and loading them when we did our test, because the test was just like, for Polaroid, just to see how it looked. So there's all this cloud of fuller's earth going up, and I started hearing these screams from the green beds. Hey, what are you doing? Where's all that dust coming from? So we got kind of reprimanded for that, because they were working on their little Mitchells, getting all ready for the shot. Nobody told them that there was going to be a cloud of dust wafting up from the stage.